Hello, my friends! This week I decided to get back into watercolor painting. I haven't used my watercolor paint in over 3 years, and it felt like it was really time to get back into it because it was honestly my favorite medium out of everything I did, and I don't know why I stopped. I wasn't even sure at first too if I should make this into a video or not because I honestly didn't like how this painting came out in the end, but you could be the judge of that and let me know in the comments later on. So I will be using a new watercolor set because I only had watercolor paint that was pretty old from like years ago and I wasn't sure if it would even be the same. And I'm currently trying out this Mei Liang watercolor paint set. Please forgive me if I mispronounce that. Also, I am not sponsored by them. I didn't know what other watercolor paint to use, and I saw these guys had pretty good reviews and wanted to try them. So I figured while I spend the time getting used to the watercolors again, I'd give you some tips on what I learned back when I used them all the time. So watercolor can either be very easy or a little difficult to work with. You just have to practice and get used to it, basically. I can't really remember how I used to start my watercolor paintings. I feel like I always started with the main subject, but this painting doesn't really have a main subject. I mean, they are potted flowers like for a garden, but painting the background around those main subjects would be absolutely horrendous to do, so I'm gonna do the good old background to foreground method first. Here you can see I am pre-wetting the background so I can easily spread the blue shadow I want to create on the fence. Adding more water always helps with this. It allows you to create a consistently blended shadow so you don't have unnecessary brush strokes that could ruin your painting. So the first tip is the most important tip, and that would be starting from light and gradually building your layers to a dark consistency. Always begin with light washes and gradually layer darker colors. Watercolor is transparent, so it's much easier to darken than to lighten. The next tip, I would suggest to use a proper paper for when you're using watercolors, unlike me, who used a random waterish based paper to test her new watercolors on. So I would suggest using a cold press or 100% cotton watercolor paper. Usually I want to say 140 pound or higher. Regular paper or thin sketchbooks won't absorb water well and can tear very easily. The third tip I would say is also a very important tip. You want to control your water. The water to paint ratio is everything with watercolor, so more water equals lighter and more transparent color, and less water equals bolder, more saturated colors. And make sure you let those dry completely before painting on top to avoid messy colors and unwanted bleeding with those colors. For the next tip, I would suggest having 2 jars of water, one for rinsing dirty brushes and one for clean water. This keeps your colors fresh and bright. And work wet on wet for soft edges. So painting on wet paper before you begin it all gives a dreamy, flowing kind of blend. Perfect for skies, flowers, and soft backgrounds, kind of like what I have behind the fence there. The next tip would be to use wet on dry for crisper details in your paintings. So painting on dry paper gives you more control and sharp, clean edges, which is great for adding details, which is what I should have done for the leaves and flowers here. So I know watercolor could be very unforgiving, and one of the tricks to use when you make a mistake is the water and paper towel method. And as you can see here on one of these pots, I didn't like how dark it had ended up because I added too many layers. So what you want to do is dab it, the spot you don't like, with clean water and then blot gently with a paper towel to lift up the paint. With watercolor, this works, but I'm pretty sure with like gouache or acrylic or anything, that does not work. It does not help. So watercolor is forgiving in that way. As for the paint set, I'm still deciding how I feel about it. I love the color variety and vibrancy, but some parts didn't blend the way I expected. It might be the paper I used or just that I'm a bit rusty at watercolor painting. Let me know in the comments how you think it turned out. I've been practicing with this set all week, and honestly, I think getting better watercolor paper might help. This was such a fun piece to paint, and I feel it was perfect for spring. And as a gardener, it really felt like the right painting for me personally for such a sunny day. Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps a lot and keeps me inspired to share more. I'd love to hear from you too. Like, what are you currently practicing in your own art journey? Drop it in the comments below. And remember, be bold, be creative, and most importantly, be you. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you again in my next video. Bye!